a good talk with them. Now, why I'm here is I wanted to know more about coal seam gas mining and the impact it is having on our country, communities and the people. So I think it's very important now that we actually hear from you, the people, the locals, and the impact it is having on you. So hence my being here. Now tonight my first guest that I'll be actually introducing to have a talk to is Dr. Geraldine McCarran. Is that correct? That's correct. It is correct. Now Dr. McCarran is not she's not a local doctor here in the area, but I understand you actually got involved in this in about 2013. So please just tell the people your story, why you got involved in this and what concerns you. I'll get you to hold that.
I had sort of found out about unconventional gas and wanted to try...
Hold that up closer.
Yes. To find... I thought it was an international thing, and then I actually found out that it was happening right here in Australia. I didn't at that stage, by 2013, know anything about it. So I came out here on a bus trip called Bridging the Divide, and met and spoke with some local people, and I heard some stories that really disturbed me. So I came out a couple of times. I spoke to different people and found that it seemed to be a consistent story. So I came out and did a survey in 2013 on the health aspects of the people, mostly in the rural residential estates, but in some of the areas around that. And what I found was really disturbing, because about 58% of the people believed at that time that their health was being impacted by the gas fields that was around them. And the symptoms that they were complaining about were varied. There were skin rashes, headaches, nosebleeds, coughs, difficulty breathing, lots of problems. But the thing that really worried me, that it seemed to affect very young children as well. And neurological symptoms, or symptoms that could be related to the nervous system, that could be explained away in adults, like they might have a pinched nerve or something, but that seemed to be happening to very young children.
Yeah. Yep. What I just verify that what Dr. McCarran was actually saying. Having visited a couple of families today, and one family is 11 children, I was blown away. I thought that's absolutely fantastic to have so many children. But the thing is, they were telling me about the health issues concerning the children, waking up with nightmares, screaming through the night, pain, scared. It's not only just about the nosebleeds, and it's not only about the headaches that they're experiencing, it's also the anxiety and the scared. And this is the words that they're actually telling me. And to sit across from the table and watch a mother get tears in her eyes when she's explaining what the hurt and pain her child is going through, I think that cannot be disregarded. So I've learnt a lot. My trip today has put me in touch with these families, mums and dads who are actually going through this. Not only themselves are they experiencing headaches, nosebleeds, all the issues that they have, health issues. But what's experienced important about Dr. McCarran, who's got involved in this, is because none of, and correct me if I'm wrong, none of your local doctors will actually get involved or say anything about it. Is that right? I see head shakes. They're saying yes. The locals saying yes. So here you have a person who has to come in from outside to actually say the truth and what is actually happening. Now that is a great concern to me. Are you still involved in the area here and coming up here? Just speak into the mic loud so people can hear.
Yes, I am still involved. I have tried to get the health authorities to take it seriously. I haven't got very far. I've tried various politicians to try and get them to take it seriously, and some have, certainly to a great extent. For example, Senator Lazarus was absolutely brilliant in trying to get help to these people, but a lot of people don't. It is a big problem, because as time has gone on, it has become obvious that there is more to it than the immediate problems. What I have found out is that there's a really big concern about cancer. which seems to be well-founded, and it has not been investigated. The information that I have been able to get from the Darling Downs Hospital and Health Services shows that there actually has been a very, very significant increase in hospitalisations for heart disease, for respiratory disease, for cancer, and for attempted suicides during this time frame.
Yeah. Now we've explained about the health issues, and you're wondering why. How can coal seam gas mining have such an impact on the locals here and their health? Now I'm going to bring in a Lee McNichol at this time now to deal. Oh, sorry. Yes, Lee.
Don Lee.
Yes. Lee's actually going to explain to you about the water. And Lee, you were a farmer, weren't you?
Well, I'm an animal doctor, actually. I'm a veterinarian and a farmer, and I'll give you a bit of a
Please explain, and I will ask for it, please explain. So anyway, you can actually explain to people your involvement, and you're actually quite well up to on the water and the impact this has on the water table. So anyway, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Pauline. Yes, well, ever since graduating as an animal doctor, a veterinarian a long time ago now, 1968, I've worked in inland Australia from Darwin through to where we live now, Delaca, which is 100k west of here, and we've lived in this area since 1988. Educated 3 children who are all graduate environmental engineers. So our family does get very concerned about environmental matters, and I'm currently the chairman of the Basin Sustainability Alliance, which is a landholder group of 100 odd members who have attempted to keep the coal seam gas industry honest in terms of the claims that they make. And might I say, I got interested in this debate way back in 2005 when they first came to the Miles District making rather outlandish claims. And we've been effective enough in reducing the amount of outlandish claims they make, but there's still a lot of, what would you say, misinformation that the industry does promulgate. Now, I've handed out here tonight an opinion piece which is appearing in the Strat Basin News this week, which is a local supplement in the Chinchilla News, called "The Great Artesian Basin is Not the Magic Pudding." And unfortunately, the politicians, Queensland's politicians, have allowed the resource sector to take unlimited amounts of water from the Great Artesian Basin, which is clearly unsustainable. Everybody else is licensed and restricted in some way. In the Surat Basin at the moment, every other user, that's stock and domestic, intensive agriculture, town and industrial, the total usage is about 53,000 megalitres a year. The coal seam gas industry is taking an extra 65,000 megalitres a year. They're doubling the take, and there's no upper limit on the take. It does, and it is having a significant impact on the other aquifers in the Great Artesian Basin. And for your audience, the Great Artesian Basin sort of slopes from the inside of the Great Divide, southwest, right across inland Queensland. And you've got the fingers are aquitards, which supposedly block off water from one underground river to the other, which is, if they're the rivers, and the coal seam gas, people are taking gas from the Walloon coal measures, which is that particular aquifer, and they say that it is hermetically sealed from the other aquifers and that it won't have a significant impact. The Basin Sustainability Alliance continues to dispute that, and therein lies the issue. The unsustained, I'll repeat myself, the mining industry can take unlimited amounts of water from the Great Artesian Basin. The Great Artesian Basin is a finite resource. Yep. It is in decline. The Commonwealth Government Independent Scientific Expert Committee has clearly stated that it is in decline. It is not replenishing to the extent that we are mining water from it. This puts rural communities and agricultural industries that depend on underground water at long-term risk. And governments need to understand, as my opinion piece states, and I've handed it out here for the people to read tonight, that the Great Artesian Basin is not the magic pudding. And you might recall Norman Lindsay's children's story about the magic pudding, that you could eat it and it replenished immediately in front of you as you ate it. Well, that doesn't happen with the Great Artesian Basin. It is diminishing. And the government have justified the coal seam gas industry and the coal mining industry, but in particular the coal seam gas industry on the revenue bonanza that it was going to give Queensland. Well, hello, on the back of the handout is the latest figures from the state government's MIFA, which is the mid-year economic review. The total royalties for the petroleum and gas industry in 15-16 was $36 million.
Yep.
$36 million only. 4 years ago, before the industry went export, it was 59. It's now 36 because the export industry has got high costs, and the formula whereby they create or estimate the royalties takes into account the costs of the industry. They've got high costs and they're not paying any royalties. In fact, at the moment, Origin Energy has a court case in the Supreme Court of Queensland challenging the fact that they should have to pay any royalties at all. So here we have an industry which is severely diminishing and drawing down the water of the Great Artesian Basin and paying $36 million a year for the privilege of doing it.
Yep. You're right, and that's what I've actually been hearing. But there's another thing about the water as well, and having these wells. What I understand is there's about it's going to be about 50,000 wells that's going to go across. There's 5,000.
18 total at the moment, they estimate.
Yes, at the moment, but they are hoping to actually expand the number of wells.
No, the latest estimate, Pauline, is 18,000, and there's about 6,000 drilled at the moment.
In Queensland?
In Queensland.
In Queensland, but that's not the rest of the country as well.
I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I know the figures for Queensland.
Yeah, I'm hearing the figures. That was for the whole of Australia, what they're doing with this as well. Now, when the water, you cannot have coal seam gas mining without water. You can't do it. You must have the two. So what is happening, and it doesn't happen with every well, but you actually have fracking. Fracking is actually where they use chemicals that goes down and it actually splits it where they can draw the gas out. Now, the water actually comes up to the surface. This is actually put into ponds. What is also happening, I spoke to some people today as well, is you actually have this like an acid rain. Will I explain it that way? As it's like an acid rain that you have. So this is actually, I saw a car that's affected by it. I saw a rainwater tank that's affected by it. And the locals have actually had their water tested. Now, they've been told, don't drink this water. That's how bad it is. Now, people here are actually having to get the water brought in because they're frightened of actually drinking the water, but they're still showering and cooking in the water. Now, our authorities are not being upfront as far as I'm concerned, and I believe that this has been hidden too much and people aren't being straightforward. I think that our politicians need to be truthful with people. If this is affecting their health, as the doctor here has said, it does have an impact on their health. So we have to be very mindful of this. And what I'm putting across to the people here and who's watching this, that pressure must be put on to our politicians to say, we want the truth, we want the answers. We have to know that should we be concerned about our children's future, because that's what it's all about. Now, there were some other things too in speaking to the locals, and I'm actually going to, another gentleman here tonight is David McCabe. Now, David is actually a former farmer who's actually sold his property. He's moved into town now. But David is associated, and he'll explain, which he took me out today to see about the salt dump. This is very interesting about it, because when you actually bring the water to the surface, there's a lot of salt in it as well. Now, we're talking about 450,000 to 900,000 tonnes of salt a year. And then on top of that, you've got another 45,000 tonnes of it that could be contaminated. We don't really know what's in it. And they have to find some place where they're actually going to get rid of this. Now, there's not enough answers that are given. So to you, David.
Yep. Thanks, Pauline. Yeah, this dump, the salt dump, it's from the RO plants from CSG. The Western Downs Council didn't want it. It was applied for a dump out at We Can Do out here in Bacon Board Hill. The Western Downs Council rejected it. Apparently, We Can Do went past the council and went to the DERM or EHP and have the okay to put the 450,000 to 900,000 tonne of salt per year out here at We Can Do on Bacon Board Hill. This is only just came to light with the locals here, or some of us, some might not even know about it as yet. But Bacon Board Hill is on the top of on the way to Miles, about 10k out. It's in the catchment area of the Murray-Darling, which is Bacon Board Hill Creek, Stockyard Creek, which flow into the Rocky. Pauline was out at London Bridge today, where the Rocky meets Bacon Board, or Bacon Board Creek meets the Rocky. It's an old crossing where Common Co went to out along the Elburn Road going to Taroom years ago, and the troopers, or the police troopers, branched off there and followed the high country to Condamine to the barracks down that way. It's a very picturesque little site, and the Nats Club in Chinchilla here go there and bird watch and things like that. But the salt dump, there's going to be 26 trucks a day bringing the salt to We Can Do from the east, from the south, and also from the southwest.
But Dave, what you also told me, I don't know if you can actually hear me, but what you also told me today is that here you are at the head of the Condamine, and that is the waterways for the Murray-Darling and everything. So once that actually, if they use that as a salt dump, that could actually end in the river system and further down the in the waterways. Is that correct? So yeah, so I can understand David's concern for this. It needs to be asked and the questions answered. What is actually happening with the dump, with the salt? As I said to you, imagine this. Between 450,000 tonnes to 900,000 tonnes of salt. So where is this going to go? And you're talking about the soil there, it won't be able to hold it. It's actually going to filter through the soil and end up in the river system. So again, the waterways, we've got to protect our waterways, because further down the track, you have farmers in the Murray-Darling who are using that water. Also, the water that it's supposed to be, goes through a system is being used. That water from the coal seam gas mining is actually being used on our food. They're actually using that as water to irrigate our crops. So it is of great concern.
That's
Do you
right.
want to add any more?
Yeah, that's right, Pauline, yes, and not only that here, the cartage of salt it's got, it's bought at the RO plant, it's put there, it's on probably CSG country. Why isn't it, it's produced there, so why isn't it kept there? Why cart it to somewhere else and contaminate some other area? And in the trucks, it's not all liquid, and the wind will blow it. It will also wreck the country and make it saline right through.
Yep.
Years ago there was going to be a toxic dump at Gulamundi, and it was overruled and squashed because they weren't sure that the toxic chemicals that were going to be put there, as well as the salt that's going to be out here, cannot leach into the aquifers and contaminate the water underground.
Right. So, Doctor, do you actually think that these problems could possibly be coming from the water?
Yeah, the problems, there has been research done, not here in Queensland, but internationally. And there has been a lot of research done, probably since about 2013. And 80-90% of the research shows that the air can be contaminated, the water can be contaminated, and that air and water can cause health problems. So yes, and the problem with the salt, it's not just salt. Salt is bad enough, but it also contains whatever is exhumed from the ground, which includes radioactive materials, which includes heavy metals, which includes the BTEX, toluene, benzene. So all of that then potentially can go downstream as well in the Murray-Darling Basin.
Right, thank you. We spoke about, and people are thinking, oh wow, it's brought a lot of jobs, it's brought money to the area. Well, I actually had a look up on the website today to see Origin, one company. I think there's 5 companies here with coal seam gas mining. Now, Origin, guess what? They made $12.2 billion in, income. Guess what they paid in tax? Zilch, nothing, not a cent. Why? Has our state government sold us out? And in the process, they've actually destroyed our land, our water. Can you imagine to destroy the land? Our agricultural sector's gone, the farming's finished, because we cannot survive in this country without water. That is our main thing. And this is where we actually need to put pressure on the governments to say, this is not good enough. It's your communities. You live here. You have to live in this atmosphere. It's all right for me. I'm going to go back to town and I'll live in the cities. It's not going to affect me. But it concerns me greatly because this is where we need to expose. You actually have a right to have a voice here because it's affecting your communities, your lifestyles, your families, and it's not good enough. Now, this is your home. And I believe that the politicians, and if they're listening to this, get yourselves out here and start listening to the people and start making some decisions. Because I know you came out here, Anastasia Palaszczuk, and you did absolutely nothing. The people were they were not, what I've heard today, I sat in the same seat as you on 2 occasions. And the whole fact is that they didn't get any answers out of you. No compassion, no answers, nothing, and you are Premier of the state. Start representing the people, and this is of great concern. Don't disregard it. All the ministers that are involved in this as well. I want to introduce now Vicky. Vicky is a school teacher, and Vicky, you know, I suppose you can actually shed a lot of light on this, the impact that it has on a lot of the students in your classroom. So welcome, Vicky.
Yeah, thanks, Pauline. I had a bit of a chat to the people when we had the Katter Party come out. So I've been in town 12 years now. I'm not a local, I'm not born and bred here. You've got to be at least 3 generations to be a local in Chinchilla. But I've been here 12 years, so I've had a fair crack. I've been in the education system for those 12 years of my career and seen our town go through a lot of different changes and the kids go through a lot of different changes. So as young adolescents are, they're not all rat bags and, you know, scumbag kids. There's a lot of beautiful children out there that have got wonderful hearts. The thing about young people, when they're going through the puberty sort of years and everything, it's really hard for them to fit in with where they are in society, who they are as a young person. And we tend to see in the classroom, whatever the environment is at home, the kids bring it with them to the school. So over the years I've seen the town go through drought, and we've had kids come to town, get water from our school and then take it home for them on the bus. We've had kids shower at our school because we've had no water. And we've seen the stress that's put on these young people because mum and dad at home haven't got a crop because there's been no rain. So the kid actually comes to school with that stress from the parent. They're like little sponges, young people. So whatever they're experiencing at home, it's actually infecting them in a classroom. Like, how can you expect a kid to learn 2 + 2 when they're thinking, does mum and dad have enough money to feed us tonight? Does mum and dad have enough money in their bank account to feed themselves. Where are we going to sleep if we lose this house? Or even though the kid themselves isn't the one that's impacted by those decisions making, they're the little sponges that are sucking up that energy from their parents. So we've seen drought hit this town. Now we've seen the next influx that's come through in my time of being here is this CSG. So I've done a bit of work last year as a youth support coordinator in the district. So I worked in Miles as well as here. And I got to meet some young people with a few issues that are going on at home. And some of these young people had issues with the CSG in their family. So the kids weren't sitting in on the conversations with the origin of the QGCs and that with the parents. But the kids then saw the stress that the parents then had. So I've seen young people self-harm because they don't know how to deal with that pressure of the stress that's going on in their home. So to the point of wanting to cut themselves, which is like a self-mutilation for these young people, just because they don't know where they fit into the world, let alone I've now got this added stress because my mum and dad or my guardians or whoever's looking after me has got this mounted pressure on it at home as well. I've seen a 5-year-old screaming at his mother to stop talking about gas. A 5-year-old. I've seen a young girl, about 12, want to self-harm because she doesn't know how to help mum and dad. She's at wit's end of, how do I help my parents when I'm only a kid, let alone my own issues that's going on with school and everything. So yeah, I've seen different changes in these kids throughout the years, and our next big problem that our young people are facing is this CSG, and how they cope with the stress that's in the home.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. As I've said, it's I'm not taking questions.
Can I address the crowd?
No.
3 minutes, they
No.
must know something about the...
Sorry, Carl, we actually are live streaming this. That's very important what you're saying, Vicky, because these kids are under stress and their families are under stress, and I know that because I spoke to some of the families, as I did say today, and I have spoken to them. And I know I've met Josh today. Josh is one case, for years he's actually has to stay indoors. Josh is actually, he's disabled, he has a wheelchair. His parents bought him a brand new $10,000 wheelchair so he could get around and get outside. Guess what? He can't use it. He can't get out because they're frightened of the acid rain that comes down on him and it affects his health. They put in a pool for him to use. Guess what? He can't use it because he can't go outside, because the impact it's having on his health, but also his parents. And his mother has had to go into hospital. It is a real scenario that is happening, the impact on the health issues of people here. Is there a show of hands of other people who are impacted by the health in the community? There are a few hands there, yes. So it is very important. There's another lady I'm going to introduce you to here, is Karen Orty. Now, Karen is one of the locals in the community, aren't you, Karen? So
I'm an overnight local. I've only been here 9 years.
okay, overnight. So just briefly, if you want to tell the people the story.
Okay, yeah, I call myself an overnight local. I've been here 9 years. I've been visiting Chinchilla since the 1970s though. So I live in town, and I started to notice the impacts when suddenly couldn't get a park down the main street with the mining vehicles. It became, as you would all know, very apparent very quickly the huge amount of fluoro workers, and it didn't help that one of the companies set up their office in the middle of the CBD. And then I started hearing about the impacts out of town, so I investigated that, found out a bit more, and I've watched the changes that have happened very, very quickly, the development. So the huge influx of workers, I believe we had around 10,000 people in workers' camps around here. The population of the town and the district was around 5,000 at the time, so we more than tripled our population. So with that came a lot of issues. Our local media wouldn't publish letters to the editor. You couldn't say the C word in public, basically, coal seam gas. Fortunately, the newspaper has changed now and things are a little bit more open. We noticed a lot more trash. Our beautiful, clean, tidy little town became a dumping ground, and where every little back road here, there and everywhere had an enormous amount of rubbish. And then the real estate boom happened. And that had a devastating effect on our locals, where the rents went through the roof. A lot of low-income people left town. A lot of our pensioners left town. A lot of our low-income families left town because they couldn't afford to pay $600 or $700 a week rent. A lot of the local businesses lost their workers because the workers went to work for the coal seam gas industry. So our mechanics and stores and that kind of thing had real trouble trying to retain staff. The boom it lasted 3 years. In that time, the impact on people like me, I'm a pensioner, so I'm on a low fixed income. My rates doubled. So the house that I bought and paid reasonable rates on, within 3 years that doubled. My income didn't double. What else happened, Vic?
Well, I guess I was one of those people that was affected by the boom. I had to buy a house because I wasn't going to put $500 or $600 a week just in rent. And I was at an age where I wanted to start to live on my own, so I had to get a house. Since then, I've lost about $100,000. My house is not even worth, what I paid for it. So now, as a young person with a 3-month-old daughter, I now have to find another $100,000 for my mortgage because my house has just gone because the boom stopped.
Yeah, that's definitely happened. The downturn now collapsed. So I just checked the internet today, and there's around 400 houses for sale. There's around 200 for rent. It changed the demographic too, in that we had a lot of people on welfare coming to live here because the rent was so cheap. We had a lot of low-income earners and people on healthcare cards, which is all very well, but we did not have the government services to support that. So we have, for instance, one Centrelink worker that finishes work at 12:30 every day, and we have a 100% increase in people needing those services. And the same with the crime rate. The crime rate went up, but the level of policing did not match that. The level of staffing at the courthouse did not match that. So there were problems with that. Now we've got a huge real estate dip, and I'm caught in the same boat. I bought my house before the boom hit, and there's no way in the world that I can sell it even for what I bought it for 9 years ago. So I'm trapped here, like many other people.
Actually, also, I spoke to a fellow today from Miles, and he spoke to me about the impact on the town of Miles with the coal seam gas mining, and he said it's actually destroyed it. They actually prepared for an influx of people in the coal seam gas mining, and they haven't. So here you had a new motel that went bust, liquidators within a month. You had businesses shutting down. You've had houses that were built, and it hasn't flowed on. So therefore, they are in dire straits at Miles and wanting some assistance. So thinking that coal seam gas mining into these areas is going to be great for the town, that is not always the case. Now, another thing that I've actually learnt today is that the coal seam gas mining companies have bought up a lot of tract of land, so they've bought up a lot of farms. So what's happening now is that the councils are not getting those rates on those properties, so that with a bit larger tracts of land, they're actually paying only a couple of $1 million in rates, whereas the councils would have recovered a lot more money from them if it had been in the hands of locals. Also, what I saw on the map today is national parks have that many wells on it. Why is the government allowing national parks to have these coal seam gas mining wells on the properties? And I just finished talks with another lady last week where they're wanting to tie up her property into a national park. So right across this state, a lot more of our land has been tied up into national parks and forcing people from their lands.
That PA's
Yeah.
not working all that well at the moment.
Yeah. So sorry about that. So there are many issues that are flowing on from this. I think what's important about this this whole thing, and another person I met today was Helen Philcott. Sorry?
Pardon, Helen?
Yeah, sorry,
Bender.
Bender. Sorry, Helen. My apologies. Helen
That's fine.
Bender. I went out and had a talk with Helen today, and Helen has a story to tell. But, yeah, I know it's awfully hard for you, Helen, but I think it's very important. You're very informative today, and I think it's very important that people know your story and what's happened to you and your family, and especially, you know, when we talk about the inquiry, which was the Bender inquiry. So I'll give it over to you, Helen.
Thanks. Okay, thanks Pauline for coming out today with your team.
Can we get another, have we got another mic, or that's, yeah.
Just keep going. Okay, so yes, Pauline and the team has come out and we obviously spoke with the family regarding the outcome of my father. It's much harder to talk about now than ever before, actually. So, but anyway, our story is, you know, 10 years ago, QGC rolled into town. I'm pretty proud of my father. He said no. And that's really important, that all landowners get to say that no. However, Origin Energy rocked in. Of course, they also wanted wells. But our dilemma came with regards to, I guess, out of an outcome with what Lee McNichol spoke about with the water. And our property, Chinchilla, has lost the water bores purely because of coal seam gas activities and the dewatering of the Walloon coal measure. So through that process, which comes under the Water Act, basically games are played by the industry. And through those, basically through those games, it led to the death of George taking his life. So that's just over a year ago now. And essentially it got to a point where Origin did not want to decommission the water bores, and their solution was to basically force George into selling the property. And that way they could, you know, it was up to them then. They owned the property, they wouldn't decommission the bores. It saved them money, saved them time, and it got rid of George Bender. So through the death of George, Glenn Lazarus set up the Federal Senate inquiry, which he, in honour of George, called the Bender Inquiry. And of course now Malcolm Turnbull did the double dissolution, which was very convenient for him to just basically push it out the back door under the carpet and let's not deal with the real issues. But hopefully, Pauline, and for all the voices in the gas fields, we can have our voice back again, because we do need that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Is it on?
Let's see, that's on. Can we hear it? Yep.
Whoa.
Okay, it's on. What Helen was saying was that the Bender inquiry, apparently Glenn Lazarus actually started up the Senate inquiry, and because the double dissolution was called, it hasn't been brought down, it hasn't been finalised. So that is something I will follow up for you and see where that's at, and I will speak to the Prime Minister himself personally and see where it's at. So I don't know what else to say about that, but I only just found out about that today, the Bender inquiry. But you've been through a lot, and many people have been through a lot here, and I'll just say again, Facts need to be exposed. Apparently the Bender inquiry, there were people out there turned up, families, they were putting their submissions, they were trying to tell the politicians what was happening, the impact it is having on their communities, their health, and coal seam gas mining is not all that it's cracked up to be. And these politicians that are out there, one fella said to me, he said, went up to a politician, they're saying, what do you think about coal seam gas mining? He said, yes, jobs. Well, at the end of the day, it's not all about jobs. It's all about the environment that we live in, protecting our environment to make sure that we still have it intact for future generations. What we've got to do is make sure that we do not destroy our farming sector. And we have to be a country that can produce our food to feed ourselves and not rely on the rubbish that comes in from other countries. So I'm very... and I will always stand up for the Australian farmer and try to support them. But it's been, I think we will start to wind this up. Without you people here tonight, and thank you, what a wonderful, the room is actually full with people that came tonight. So I do thank you very much for your attendance, because you make it also important, much more important, because you must be concerned about this to come here. I've been very privileged to actually have the chance to come here and thank you very much to Vicky and organising this. Vicky's associated with Lock the Gate, and she thought, well, I'm going to get in touch with Pauline Hanson and see what happens from there. Well, she got me out here, and it's been very informative. I've learnt a lot by coming out here. To my other guests, Dr. Geraldine, Dr. Geraldine and Karen, and to Vicky and to David and Lee, thank you, and to Helen. Without you tonight, I think your message, what you've said tonight, has, I hope, has informed the people who are watching this. Go and read up, understand it a bit more, and please, will you speak to your politicians, and if you're thinking about if there is talk about coal seam gas mining coming to your community, think twice about it. Ask the questions, because what we've put across tonight, I think it's important that you know the facts, and don't just think, oh yes, we've got jobs. It goes a lot deeper than that. We can never replace our country, we can never replace our water, we can never replace the land, and that's what I'm always fighting for, to ensure that. Anyway, to each and every one of you, thank you for tuning in. And to all my guests, thank you very much again. And to all of you, thank you for your attendance. Good night.